Let's get the details now on that COVID case in New South Wales. A Sydney man who tested positive, placing a number of venues across Sydney on high alert. Charlotte Mortlock is across this for us from State Parliament, where the Premier has spoken today and indicated through her and the Chief Medical Officer that this man is highly infectious.
Yeah, health authorities have grave concerns over this case, Kieran. That's because the man in his 50s who has tested positive does have a high viral load. Now, that means that he is quite contagious. He's also been quite active across southern and eastern parts of Sydney. Now, urgent genome sequence testing is underway. We will know the results of that within about 24 hours, and that should reveal the exact strain that this man has and potentially if there are any leaks. But the real worry at this point is that it does appear to be random. This man does not work in the quarantine system and has not been overseas recently.
Is there any sort of working hypothesis of how he could have got this in terms of who he's been or where he's...
Unfortunately, not at this stage. Obviously, we've asked him about he hasn't returned from overseas. He hasn't worked in border or quarantine roles. He has not had any contact with the hospital system. So all of the usual routes where we would expect someone to have acquired the infection are not clear, and that's why this is really requires us to do that genome sequencing.
The last community transmission case we had here in New South Wales was linked to the Byron Bay Hens Party cluster. Now, that means that today has ended a 35-day streak without community transmission. Unfortunately, as I said, the authorities are still trying to piece together exactly what has occurred, but text messages are being sent out as we speak to a number of people that have attended venues across Sydney. I'll list some of those venues that are on high alert. Event Cinema Bondi Junction, Figo Restaurant Rushcutters Bay, Joe's Barbecues and Heating Silverwater, Tucker Barbecues Silverwater, Barbecues Galore Annandale, Barbecues Galore Cashula, BP Mascot and the Meat Store in Bondi Junction. Now, the Premier said that this man did everything he was supposed to do. He came forward for testing when he was symptomatic, and he had been regularly using his QR code check-in, but she wasn't quite as impressed with a number of the venues. She said that the Bondi Junction Event Cinema only had 100 QR code check-ins for the Friday night when the man was there, and that would seem low considering a lot of people do go to the movies on the Friday night. So she said that this does need to come as a warning not only to civilians but also to business operators.
I just hope that everybody takes this as a wake-up call to make sure that all of us adjust our behaviour. It's really easy to let down your guard, especially in a social setting. So it's really important for us not to let down our guard, make sure we do QR codes.
The last significant outbreak we had was the Northern Beaches cluster over the Christmas period this year. Now, the Premier has said, unfortunately, Kieran, that she does not believe that this will be an isolated case. She says because of how random it is, it's likely we'll see more cases in the coming days. Questions have already been raised about restrictions. The Premier says at this stage there aren't any changes, but the government's reaction is going to reflect how serious this outbreak is.
This is very early, and no doubt I'll expect other cases. If there is one case and we don't have an immediate source, if there's no direct connection that we can establish, we have to assume there are other cases. That's why all of us need to be on guard, and our response will be proportionate, as always has in New South Wales.
Naturally, every time there is a new outbreak, there is a wave of anger from many people in the public over the delay of the coronavirus vaccine rollout. The Premier said that at this point we need to focus on what we can control.
I can't urge enough how important it is for people to get vaccinated. On Monday, the mass vaccination hub in Homebush complements already the 5 major hubs we have, plus the 100 sites we have around the state. The GP network from the following Monday will take people over the age of 50. We encourage everyone to come forward and get tested.
In the last 24 hours, we had 13,500 people coming forward for testing. That's actually quite strong considering that we haven't had an outbreak in a while, but you would expect that to rapidly increase over the next 24 and even 48 hours as the community start to come forward and have potentially been to these venues that are on high alert. And that is exactly what the authorities want residents to do.
Charlotte, thank you for that.